Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, hit that subscribe button right now. I promise you, by the time this video is over, you are going to want to be part of this family. Because tonight, we are diving into one of the wildest, most emotional roller coaster nights Broncos country has felt all preseason. Buckle up, grab your favorite drink, and let's get into it. Picture this. Empower Field at Mile High, lit up for the first time in the 2026 season. Bo Nix jogging out under the lights next to Jalen Waddle for the very first time as teammates. The crowd on its feet. 7 straight preseason wins on the line. And for about 15 glorious minutes, it looked like the Denver Broncos were about to make it 8 in a row without even breaking a sweat. Then everything fell apart. Not because of Bo Nix. Not because of Jalen Waddle, but because of what happened after the starters walked off that sideline. And folks, what happened next was an old-fashioned, bottom-of-the-roster horror show. Let's start with the good, because there was a lot of it, and it deserves every bit of hype we can give it. Bo Nix opened the game looking like a completely different quarterback than the one Broncos fans fell in love with as a rookie. Calm feet. Quick eyes, total command of Davis Webb's offense. On the opening drive, Nix marched Denver right down the field, moving the chains on a slick completion to Courtland Sutton, and then delivering a gorgeous strike on 3rd and 6 to running back R.J. Harvey on a wheel route for a touchdown that had the whole stadium buzzing. That connection between Nix and Harvey out of the backfield is quickly becoming one of the sneakiest, deadliest weapons on this entire roster. And if defenses aren't accounting for it by week 1, they are going to pay dearly. And then there's Jalen Waddle. Broncos country has been dreaming about this pairing since the day general manager George Paton pulled the trigger on the trade, and in his very first live fire snaps in a Denver uniform, Waddle did not disappoint. His first official catch as a Bronco went for a first down deep into Packers territory, and it wasn't even a perfectly placed ball. Waddle simply turned on the jets, ran away from Green Bay's secondary, and turned a modest completion into a chunk play. That is exactly what this offense has been missing. A true home run threat who can turn a 5-yard hitch into a 25-yard gain just by existing. Nix to Waddle. Say it a few more times, Broncos fans, because you are going to be saying it a lot this year. Now here's where I need you to lean in close, because this is where things got spicy. Sit down, buckle up, and hold on to your Broncos flag. Because once the first string offense and defense walked to the sideline, the wheels came completely off. The Green Bay Packers' 2nd, 3rd, and 4th string units did something that should genuinely worry every single fan who watched it happen. They absolutely dismantled Denver's backup offensive line. I am talking about a level of pressure that turned backup quarterback Jarrett Stidham into a man running for his literal football life on nearly every single dropback. Sacks, hurries, hits landing before the ball could even leave his hand. It was rough to watch, and if you're a Broncos fan who tuned in expecting a laugher, I understand the whiplash. But before you spiral into a full-blown panic post in the comments, take a breath with me, because there is context here that matters enormously. Here's the thing about preseason football that gets lost every single year. The players getting torched in that second half are, for the most part, not walking into that locker room in week 1 against the Kansas City Chiefs. A huge chunk of those offensive linemen, those depth chart defensive backs, those third-string tight ends, they are fighting for a practice squad spot, or fighting to catch another team's eye before final cuts. This is exactly what the preseason exists for. You want the kinks worked out in August in front of nobody who matters, not in September under the lights on Monday Night Football. So while the final score, a 33-13 loss that snapped Denver's 7-game preseason win streak, looks ugly on paper, the story underneath it is far less alarming than the box score suggests. Now, speaking of players fighting to prove themselves, before we go any further, I've got to tell you about our sponsor for tonight. Because this is exactly the kind of night where being locked into Prize Picks pays off. I play Prize Picks every single day, and it is genuinely my favorite way to get extra skin in the game while I'm watching my Broncos play. If you want to jump in, sign up with code MA, play your very first $5 lineup, and if that lineup hits, Prize Picks is going to hand you $150 in bonus lineups. That's real money to keep playing with just for getting in the game. Tonight's slate had me leaning the more on Bo Nix's passing yards, which hit early and often. Plus a look at Courtland Sutton's receiving yards, which came agonizingly close before officials waved off a tight sideline catch. Whether you're riding with the Broncos every single week or mixing in players from around the league, Prize Picks lets you turn Sunday, or in this case, a Friday night preseason showdown, into something with a little extra juice riding on every single snap. Sign up with code MA, get that $150 in bonus lineups on your first $5 entry, and go have some fun with it. All right, back to business, because we've still got a lot to unpack from this one, and it's not all pretty. Let's talk about the secondary for a second, because this is where things get a little more concerning long-term, even if it's still just preseason. Backup cornerback depth got picked on relentlessly by Green Bay's quarterbacks. Slant after slant, comeback route after comeback route, the Packers' passing attack found soft spots in zone coverage over and over, and it exposed just how thin things can get once you dip past the top 2 or 3 names on the depth chart at cornerback. Now, the flip side of that coin is genuinely encouraging. Riley Moss opened the game with an absolutely gorgeous pass breakup on the very first defensive snap of the night, showing off exactly the kind of sticky, disruptive coverage that has Broncos fans buzzing about his ceiling heading into his 3rd season. Unfortunately, Moss appeared to injure his ribs later on that same opening series and did not return. There is no confirmed update on his status as of this recording, and I promise you, the moment we hear anything from Sean Payton's camp, we will have a video out immediately. Pin this in your minds, Broncos country, because if Moss has to miss any time, the door swings wide open for Jahdae Barron to step into a starting cornerback role, and based on what we've seen from him in camp, I do not think Denver misses much of a beat if that's the direction this goes. On the defensive front, there were legitimate bright spots even amid the chaos. Edge rusher K. Robinson turned in maybe the single best individual performance of the entire night for Denver, consistently blowing past backup tackles, generating pressure on what felt like every other snap, and capping it off with a full sack that forced a Green Bay punt. If Jonathan Cooper's looming suspension situation does end up sidelining him for any stretch of the regular season, tonight was a loud, unmistakable reminder that Robinson is more than ready to step into a starting role and produce. Nick Bonito also flashed his signature quick twitch pressure off the edge, even drawing an early encroachment penalty because he simply could not be blocked in time. Up front, the interior of Denver's defensive line held up admirably against the run for most of the night, stuffing multiple handoffs before they could even develop, a very good sign considering how physical the Packers' run-heavy offense wanted to be. Now let's circle back to the running back room, because this might genuinely be one of the most underrated storylines of the entire summer. Rage Harvey, fresh off his touchdown reception, showed noticeably more comfort running between the tackles tonight compared to what we saw from him as a rookie, a clear point of emphasis that is paying off. Behind him, Jonah Coleman continued to turn heads every time his number was called, showing off contact balance that had the entire broadcast booth buzzing, spinning out of tackles, and refusing to go down on first contact. If Denver truly ends up rolling out a 3-headed committee of R.J. Harvey, Jonah Coleman, and a healthy J.K. Dobbins once the regular season kicks off, this could shape up to be one of the deepest, most dangerous backfields anywhere in the NFL. Mark it down now. Of course, we can't talk about tonight's game without addressing the officiating, because Broncos country, if you were watching along in the live chat, you know exactly how heated things got. There were flags flying seemingly every other snap, offensive holding, defensive pass interference calls that had players and coaches alike throwing their hands up in disbelief, a roughing the passer penalty on a hit that genuinely looked clean on replay. By the time the dust settled, Denver had been charged with roughly 10 accepted penalties, with several more declined along the way. Now look, it's preseason. Officiating crews are working out their own kinks, same as the players, but if this is any indication of what's coming once the games actually count, Broncos fans might want to brace themselves for a bumpy relationship with the referees this season. Let's zoom out and grade this thing honestly, because that's what this channel has always promised you. The truth, win, lose, or draw, no sugarcoating. The first-team offense and defense earn an A, full stop. Bo Nix was sharp, in complete command, and clearly building real chemistry with his new WR1 in Jalen Waddle. Raj Harvey looked like a bigger, more complete weapon than the one we saw as a rookie. The starting defensive front generated consistent pressure and held up well against the run. That's exactly the kind of performance you want to see from the players who are actually going to be on the field in Arrowhead Stadium on September 14th for Monday Night Football against the Chiefs. But once the backups took over, that's a D. Maybe even lower if we're being brutally honest. The offensive line depth got exposed in a big way. The secondary depth got exposed in a big way. Special teams lane integrity was almost non-existent for a stretch, allowing a kickoff return that nearly went the distance untouched. These are real coaching points that Sean Payton and his staff absolutely need to clean up over these next few weeks, even if the players responsible for most of it won't be wearing a Broncos uniform come week 1. So where does that leave us heading into the final week of the preseason? Denver closes things out against the Minnesota Vikings, and I genuinely believe you're going to see a much cleaner performance across the board, if for no other reason than the fact that final roster cuts are looming and every single player on that field will be playing like his entire career depends on the next 60 minutes, because for a lot of them, it truly does. And speaking of things that matter, let's not forget what's on the line right here on this channel. We are closing in on our 1,000 subscriber milestone, and when we hit it, one lucky subscriber is walking away with a genuine Jalen Waddle jersey. That giveaway wraps up right after next week's Vikings preseason finale, so if you have not subscribed yet, there has never been a better time. Every single subscription gets us closer. Every like helps this channel grow so we can keep bringing you honest, no-nonsense Broncos breakdowns every single day of the season. Drop a comment down below and let me know after everything you just heard, what's your honest grade for tonight's performance? A, B, C, D, or F? I want to see it in the comments. Look, Broncos country, I know tonight didn't end the way any of us wanted. Nobody likes watching their team drop a game, even a meaningless preseason one, even when the box score doesn't tell the real story. But if you take one thing away from this breakdown, let it be this: the players who actually matter, the ones who are going to be lining up for real football in 24 days, looked sharp, looked confident, and looked exactly like a team building real, legitimate momentum heading into the season. Bo Nix to Jalen Waddle is going to be must-watch television all year long. Raj Harvey and Jonah Coleman are going to punish opposing defenses. And this defense, when the starters are on the field, is going to make life miserable for opposing quarterbacks. So do me a favor before you close this video out. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a single breakdown this season. Smash that like button so this channel keeps growing and I can keep bringing you this content every single day. And drop a comment letting me know who your MVP of tonight's game was, because I already know mine. And I bet a lot of you are thinking the exact same two names I am. Until next time, Broncos country, mile high salute. Be cool.